Hello, folks. Welcome to Ants Are Everywhere. Today we're taking a look at Loomio, which is some software written in Ruby for making decisions together. Collaborative decision making. They also call it collective intelligence. And I think it's mainly stuff like voting, like polls, chat, like threaded chat. Presumably it hooks up to whatever single sign-on system you use for your organization. And you can use it to make decisions together. I thought this would be a pretty interesting repo because we're closing up to a pretty important election in my country, the United States. And I thought it would be good to look at some software that is about decision making together. And I think this should be a pretty straightforward Ruby app, probably Ruby on Rails, which I don't think we've looked at like just a straight up Ruby on Rails app before. So I think it should be mostly straightforward, although we'll see what we see. Apparently, Loomio emerged from the Occupy movement. In 2012, it launched its first prototype. It was utilized in the Occupy movement in New Zealand. Okay, so I don't know if the New Zealanders wrote it, or they just used it, or what. I'm kind of feeling like maybe checking out browsing in Emacs. I opened a few files just to make sure that my that all the various plugins were configured. And I'm not sure where to start. I think app is going to be where the actual app is. There should be some database stuff. Lib is probably going to be third-party libraries, although we can verify that. I don't know. We have an event bus, some analyzers, and some tasks. I'm already feeling let's go back to here. Okay, so let's look at DB just to roll it out. Where did lib go? Lib is here. And app. I don't really know where else things would be. There's some Vue stuff. Vue must be the front end, I think. Unless, I think Ruby renders on the back end. I mean, Rails, but I'm not positive. So their database... maybe we'll look at the database later. Let's get a feel for the app first. And then lib, things like PyChart. I think this is not a third-party library, and I don't know what an analyzer is. We have transcription analyzer. And this is some Ruby syntax. Let's just nip this in the bud and ask what this syntax is. It might be something like a type bound, like inheritance information. So this denotes inheritance. Okay, great. All right, so this is just inheriting from something. Okay, so this is the analyzer. We've got this probe from file. So we're doing something with a file, something about transcribing a file. I don't know what it's analyzing though. Message channel service, publish models. So we're going to read a file, I guess transcribe it. We have the response, which I guess this is maybe some sort of Ruby syntax to say that we're packing some struct, maybe like a JSON struct with a response and a language. Or rather, we're taking text and language from the response of the transcribe thing. We're doing some blob attachment stuff. And this, I think, is some HTML. There's some commented out code, which is not great, but it's not the end of the world. And then we're going to save the record. That might be some ORM stuff. And then we're going to send it. So I don't think this is really analyzing transcription. I think it's just maybe a periodic job or a background job to run the transcription service. And then we have some tasks like client, deploy, and Loomio. I don't know what rake is. Rake is presumably some Ruby library since it begins with R. Builds the JavaScript client. Maybe rake is the build system. I feel like maybe I'm too big. Okay, so Yeah, a make like build utility. Okay, so that's just to make the build system. All right, so that's safe to ignore. You can mostly ignore everything in that app. View, I'm not sure how much I want to see in view. Let's really just focus on the app itself. So we have admin, assets, controllers, extras, helpers, mailers. Mailers, I'm pretty sure, is just going to do things like sending mail notifications. Models is probably where a lot of the business logic is. Queries is presumably something database or ORM related. Serializers, we can probably ignore. Services, validators. Yeah, let's look at validators, I guess. Views and workers. And admin. Did we open controllers? I don't think we did. But I'm going to open admin in this tab and just take a quick look at it. I guess like anytime you build a small app like this, the temptation is, and it's almost forced upon you, that you have to build some sort of user system with like logins. I'm going to guess that Rails takes care of that for you for the most part. But this is maybe stuff that only administrators can do, like demos. I don't know why demos is under admin. Some stuff about forwarding emails, email rules, groups, subscriptions, and users. We'll look at users. I don't know what these filters are. Maybe this is filtering down stuff from the database. Okay, so I'll look up what this filter is. Scope, all, and scope is coordinators. I don't know what that syntax does as well. And CSV, probably not. I don't know. Maybe that's literally a CSV file with a name, email, newsletter, locale, and time zone. And then we have some controller stuff. Index do. I don't know if that's describing the index for the database. Although maybe that's the index file, like admin/index. And it's listing a bunch of fields. Maybe CSV is render it as CSVs for export. And then form, we have some detail stuff. So like it will, like a thing for, it's an input form for you give it the name, email, username, whether they're an admin, and so on. And then we have this member action. You can update and set its names and everything. So there's a lot of like, this seems to be maybe kind of the magic of Ruby on Rails. It's a lot of the same information over and over again. But I think the idea is that maybe if you're used to Ruby and you like writing things in this way, then you can do that instead of like writing HTML. Let's ask Gemini about what's up with this code. Just so we know what filter and scope are about. So filter, these lines define filters that can be used to search and sort the list of users. Okay. So I'm guessing that maybe when this screen is rendered, these are like user toggles you have. And then the scope defines scopes that can be used to filter the use of users. Let's do an image search. How about screenshot? I'm not finding anything quickly, so maybe we'll just ignore. This is maybe the sort of thing. Although I don't see here filters. Maybe filters is like you can type it here. Maybe filters is like you can click on this and it will sort. Maybe filters goes on the left here. I don't know. But it seems to be some sort of magic around the fact that a lot of pages are just going to be list views of some resource, and we're going to like make it easier to handle that resource. All right, so that's enough for users. No, we don't see anything like passwords. How about Ruby on Rails user management? Check out sorcery. Let's ask ChatGPT. So in Does the Rails, does the Ruby library or framework, I guess, I don't know, Rails handle, let's say automatically generate or handle code for user authentication? I'm guessing for the most part it does. Well, maybe not. It provides tools and libraries. The most popular is the Devise Gem, a full-featured solution for user authentication in Rails applications. Devise offers generators to create all the necessary models, controllers, etc. So are they using that? I don't know what the quickest way to find that out is, but we can maybe, you know. Hey, I wanted to open the tab, not the frame. Okay, so let's try Devise. Class Devise, create users. Config include Devise test. There's something called Devise. Configure Devise mailer. Ruby on Rails Devise. I don't know if Devise is like a concept in Ruby on Rails or if it's this particular library. Like the library might be named after the concept, which is the thing that happens. Devise is a flexible authentication solution for Rails based on Warden. It is rack-based. I don't know what that means. Presumably this might be a Ruby library. A complete MVC solution based on Rails engines and so on. So this might be what they're using. Let's go back to users and see what they were importing. This is the database stuff. Where was that? I thought that was in lib, but maybe I was hallucinating that. That's probably one of the models, which is why I was in that directory. I don't know. Here, auth service. Maybe. Well, that's view. That's like the view. That's like the front end side of the auth service. We have some OAuth stuff. So you can hook it up with OAuth, which is good. That will allow you to, like, I guess, populate it with users from your, whatever your organization is. Here's app models users.rb, which I don't think is where I was before. I think I was at some kind of view. But we are going to include a bunch of stuff. It's a kind of application record, which seems weird. A user is not a kind of record. A user record is a kind of record. But a user is its own thing. But at any rate, we have things like, we're including has avatar, which seems like a Boolean, but maybe this is idiomatic Ruby. We're including has experiences, which again sounds like a Boolean. And a bunch of other stuff. No forbidden emails, has rich text, locales helper. And it extends has tokens and has defaults, and we're extending no spam. And then we've got this Devise thing. And I don't know how to check if this is a library. What? Okay, so we do have a gem file and we're using Devise, I assume version 4. So I think we are using Devise for authentication, which is kind of really all I wanted to know. All right, moving on. So that's users. Here are some queries. We've got attachment query, presumably looking for an attachment like a file. Contactable makes a lot more sense for communications software. Discussion query. I'll look at discussion query. I'll look at, I guess, poll query. And membership. Membership is generally, I think, harder than it seems. At least at scale. It's if you have a relatively flat organization, membership is easy to do. All right, discussion query is some query, but we have this def end structure. I assume this is just generally how you define a method in Ruby. Discussion. What does that mean? Kept joins. So this is some database stuff. We're doing a left outer join of groups on discussion.group ID. So we're looking for discussions that have the group ID, or rather, I guess we're like given a group ID, we're finding the groups where that we have some discussion, and the discussion has a group ID, and we're looking up that group ID essentially and getting back the group that it corresponds to. And we're only looking at groups that are not archived, which seems like maybe you could do that filter more quickly before you do the join, although I guess maybe it's faster this way. And then some includes, maybe this is like what to return, the author and the group. And then we are defining some dashboard that has a chain, which has a start, or is set to start rather, and a user, which is empty. And we're going to call chain where discussion group ID in group IDs, or discussions.id in discussion IDs. And group IDs is user.group IDs. Discussion IDs is user.discussion IDs. So you give it a user, and I guess you can look up the user's group IDs and find the corresponding discussions that they're involved in. I don't know what the chain stuff is, but I guess something about chaining. Presumably we're going to like recursively do this sort of thing so that we can find all of the, we're going to like follow, we're going to do some sort of like graph traversal and find more information. I'll ask ChatGPT, but what's up with the chain here? It thinks that there's a bug. That's not answering my question though. There's a chain of rubies. How about Ruby on Rails? Ruby method chaining. So it refers to an active record relation or query object that is being chained to add more query conditions. Okay, so it's an active record thing and we're adding more query conditions. That's super simple. And these are just more like SQL queries. I personally find this a little bit, seems like it'd be easier to just write the SQL, but I don't know. I mean, maybe this is simpler in some way. Here's a poll query. And we're doing a bunch of joins, and we've got discussions and memberships and discussion readers. I'm guessing discussion readers are maybe like, I think you get like read notifications of who's read the discussion. And we're getting all of that stuff, and we're like populating some sort of dashboard or view, presumably. And we've got some filter. Okay. So that's what's up with queries. Membership query, I'm going to assume is similar. Then we have some services. These, I'm going to guess, are essentially just like background jobs. Maybe not jobs in the sense that they like run to completion, but they listen for requests. I'm going to come back to that. Validators, we just have email validator. I don't know if that's doable by regex, but there should be some good library to handle it. Devise has some email regex. I'll ask, can you validate emails with a regex? The fully RFC 822 compliant regex is inefficient and obscure because of its length. Fortunately, RFC 822 was superseded twice And the current specification for email addresses is RFC 5322. 5322 leads to a regex that can be understood if studied for a few minutes and is efficient enough for actual use. Okay. The rendered version is this. Okay, and there's some diagram of it. There's a finite state machine. All right. So it seems like you can do it. It maybe used to be harder, but now is doable. Okay. So that's email validation. That's the only validation they have. And hopefully Devise gets it correctly. I don't see why they wouldn't. And then here is app views. We have things like a base mailer, chatbot view, contact mailer, discussions, forward mailer, group mailer. A lot of stuff is devoted to emailing. Groups help lay out, merge users, polls, public groups, robots, etc. We'll maybe come back to that. And then workers, we have the append transcript, announce discussion. This is maybe going to do stuff like, so I don't know how you're going to announce the discussion. Is that going to announce it on a Slack channel? And if so, why is that not a bot? Why is that a worker? Is it going to announce it by email? If so, why is that not an emailer? So I'm not really sure what the boundary is. I don't know how to think about what would be a worker versus something like the transcription service, which was an analyzer. You can destroy the discussion, destroy tag, destroy record, generic worker, group export, and so on. Undelete blob. So let's just pick a random victim, like append transcript. And we're going to include sidekick, which I think is a task queue for Ruby. Is it a queue? Sidekick? A simple, efficient, something. Background processing for Ruby. Sidekick uses threads to handle many jobs at the same time in the same process. It does not require Rails. Okay, so we're just kicking off something with Sidekick. We've got active storage, blob.find blob ID. This is presumably just doing a lookup in a database. And then we get the blob metadata at text. And then for each of the attachments, we're going to do, this looks like a capture notation. So I think this is essentially like a Lambda function. Given the attachment, we're going to set record to the attachment record body to the record body plus the text, and save. So we're literally just taking a string and appending a new paragraph with the text to it. Which I don't think you necessarily need to do this with HTML. You could just have a text file and then have a service that reads the text files and marks them up. I don't know if that's any better, but maybe this is fine. This seems like if you're going to do this, then you have to maintain valid HTML all the time. And this doesn't seem like an HTML aware method. We're just appending paragraphs. For example, we're not checking if like maybe the HTML tag has already been closed or whatever. But that's fine. And here, announce discussion worker. Somehow they're going to announce something. We're going to look up in discussion. Let's see. Let's see. Perform. Perform takes a discussion ID and actor ID in params. And then somehow we've got the discussion worker, discussion service, some reference to it. I don't know if it's a global or what. We don't seem to be including it. But we're going to call invite on it, setting the discussion to looking up in discussion, the discussion ID. Again, presumably this is going to do a database lookup. Actor is going to be set to user.find actor ID, etc. So all of this looks like pretty straightforward here. And here are controllers. We have application controller, authenticate by unsubscribe token controller, direct uploads controller, groups controller, users, identities. I don't know what the difference between users and identities is. Maybe that's worth looking at. Dev, might be like a dev version of the various things. API might be the actual REST API, although I thought I saw another API folder seemed to be a better candidate for the REST API. But let's just pick, I guess, like one of these arbitrary controllers. So we'll look at PyChart controller and polls controller. Here's passwords controller. It's the only thing in users. And we're going to set resource to resource class, reset password by token of resource params. So that's what happens on update. And if it's empty, we're going to have some error message. And whatever the sign in with resource thing does. No, empty question mark. Oh, sorry. This is if the resource errors is empty. Okay, so if there are no errors. Otherwise, there are errors, and we'll something about setting the minimum password length, and we'll respond with a resource. So this might be just a prompt to say like you haven't met the minimum password, etc. It doesn't seem like we respond to any particular errors. It seems like kind of like a canned response, regardless of what the errors are. Here's identities. And I guess the way that identities differs from users is that these are maybe third-party identities like Google, Facebook, Nextcloud. Is Nextcloud a OAuth provider? I'm not convinced it is. I mean, an OIDC. I guess it is. At least this is some sort of plugin or app. With this app, you can use Nextcloud as OpenID Connect identity provider. If other services are configured correctly, you are able to access those services with your Nextcloud login. Is this just like a community plugin? Welcome to the wiki of the Nextcloud OIDC provider. By heck. Okay. And then there's an OAuth controller, and there's SAML, which is another something markup language. It's another single sign-on thing. Security assertion markup language. Okay, so these are like essentially single sign-on identities. I guess I'm kind of curious, do they like map them to users? We have this create identity save associate identity, or rather associate. And then we redirect to destroy. If I equals current user's identity find by identity type controller name, I.destroy. I don't know what that means. I think that we're maybe just saving the remote identity rather than like creating a local identity to kind of masquerade as the remote identity, although I don't really know how people do it. Here we have app controllers dev, base controller, discussion controller, night watch controller. What is night watch? Dev scenarios, membership request, membership notification profile, email settings. We've got some Redis flush all thing. Before action, we're going to flush all the Redis stuff except last email, use last, login token, and then we're going to clean up the database. 90s movie helper, 90s movies helper, pretty URL helper. What on earth is the 90s movies helper? I'm guessing that maybe this is some demo thing. Yeah, we've got some like emails. We've got some like database queries with looking up Patrick Swayze at example.com and the Ghost movie. Okay, so I think it says dev. I think that is maybe just like demo as opposed to like a dev versus prod instance breakdown. Here's the API and controllers. We have a Hocus Pocus controller. comment discussion, poll, stance, outcome, poll template, discussion template group user. I don't know what this has to do with Hocus Pocus. We've got a secret token. Yeah, I'm not sure. But let's see if we can find the. I'll come back to this maybe. I'll see if I can find the real API before I dig into there. We have an example poll generator, which will redirect to poll. We'll get the current user. I don't know what restricted user or super is doing, but maybe only certain users can modify or create polls. We've got this respond to, which takes a format, which might be HTML or CSV. And this is for export. And here's an example. And that's really it. So there's not much there. Here's a pie chart controller. And we can show a pie chart. And we're going to take some scores. We get params. I don't know where the params came from. But we're going to take the scores of the params to S. I don't know what S is. We're maybe to string. We're going to split it on the commas. And I guess get the scores like that. And then we're going to similarly get the colors. And then we're going to have this pie chart SVG from primitives, scores, colors. And then it's going to make a pie chart. It's going to write it to a file, I guess. And then we're going to use image processing mini magic, which is maybe some wrapper around image magic, to create a PNG. And then we're going to send the file to whom? I don't know. We're going to send the send file takes the file itself, the MIME type, and I guess disposition inline means that whoever calls this is going to get it inline. Like if it's part of if it's part of a discussion, I guess it'll get like rendered inline in the discussion. All right, so that's controllers. Let's see what else is here. Workers. I think workers is not so important. Views, maybe. Let's look at the discussion views. Let's look at polls views. And let's look at chatbot views. Discussions has this show HTML.haml something markup language. An HTML abstraction markup language is based on one primary principle. Markup should be beautiful. It's yet another attempt to rewrite HTML for people who don't want to learn HTML, I think. This is not the least bit beautiful. This is just some markup that I guess is going to be ultimately rendered to HTML. Let's see what's in polls. This is discussion/polls. You can check, comment, count, dot vote. What is dot vote? Stance created body. I guess mainly maybe the reason they're using Haml is that they want templating. I don't know if there's another templating solution in Ruby. But we've got this thing render discussions/time ago. Stance created at. Stance is, I don't know if that's like taking a stance on the poll, like a vote. And then we have some choices, which we're going to order by score descending and like print them in a list, a table rather, and so on. So that's dot vote. I don't know why it's called dot vote and not vote. Here's a question. This is all just like Haml. I guess that's what it means by views, is that this is all just like HTML we're going to templatize and render. Okay, and then all of the HTML will get like assembled by populating it with variables. Where are the variables from? Well, they're mainly in the database, and we will do some computation at runtime on the database stuff, but it's the basic idea is we're going to save stuff to the database, use an ORM to pull it out, or like an active record pattern, and populate HTML templates with it. Polls, we have export.haml. I'm not going to look at any more haml. Chatbot, I think this is just more haml, right? But we have like a body text, meetings, results, simple text, little text, or rather title text, vote text. But now we have ERB. So there's eventable title, polymorphic URL, eventable. So ERB is event something broker, render markdown, eventable body. Language, embedded Ruby. A templating language based on Ruby. Puppet can evaluate ERB templates with the template and inline template function. Okay, so this is some templatable Ruby. It's a templating language based on Ruby. It says embedded Ruby. I don't know if we're just templating text or if this is like templating runnable source code. Let's take a closer look. We've got render with a resource. I think this is possibly executable. How about, well, these are all texts, so maybe not. Render chatbot, markdown, notification, event is event, etc., etc. Let's ask Gemini. Tell me about ERB in the Ruby ecosystem. I'll have it generate a response and then I'll ask it a follow-up because usually this leads to better results. Template creation. It's a popular templating language built into the Ruby standard library. It allows you to embed Ruby code within plain text documents, making it a powerful tool for generating dynamic content. So are we generating code that we are actually going to execute? So it's not intended to be executed in a specific interaction. No. So while ERB is used to generate dynamic content, the process of generating code and executing it happens within a specific Ruby application. So tell me about security vulnerabilities related to Ruby ERB. Well, ERB is a powerful tool. It can introduce security vulnerabilities if not used carefully. One of the primary risks is server-side template injection. It occurs when an untrusted user input is directly inserted into a template without proper sanitization or escaping. Okay. All right. So we're generating code that I think we plan to execute, which is possibly dangerous, but I think it's a thing that people do. That leaves us with services. I guess we'll look at event service. We'll just pick a couple of these. Poll service. Reaction service is maybe like emojis. So event service. We've got this remove from thread method. Move comments. Why are these the events? Repair thread. Reset child positions and repair all threads. So how about move comments? So you give it a discussion, an actor and params. I don't know what these actors are, but we're going to look at the params and I guess look at the forked event IDs, compact it, or rather turn it into an array, compact it, which I'm going to guess is maybe like flatten. That gives us a list of IDs. And then we're going to look for the first ID, turn it into an event and get its discussion. That's called the source. And then if the actor, I guess, has the ability to authorize, we're going to move comments on the source. And then if we have the ability to authorize, we're going to move comments on the discussion, I guess. And then we're going to call move comments worker, perform async IDs, source.id, discussion ID. Maybe this is just checking and not, I guess this is probably just checking. Does the actor have the ability to call move comments on the source? And does it have the ability to call move comments on the discussion? And if not, this probably fails it with some sort of error message. And then, assuming those pass, then we're actually going to call the action, which now we expect to succeed, is what I assume is going on with that syntax. Here's poll service. We can create a poll, and this again seems to be some sort of ability, some sort of permissions check. Can we create poll? And if we can, then we're going to assign the author of the poll, I guess, to the actor, which might be a user. I assume it might also be like a bot. And then we've got this. I don't know what prioritized poll options is. And we're going to return false unless the poll is valid. Then we're going to save the poll and update counts. I don't know where we got the poll information from. I guess it was passed into poll. And I guess if we get down here, we're going to broadcast something on the event bus, namely that the poll is created, passing in the poll and the actor. And then we're going to call events poll created publish, passing in the poll, the actor, the recipient user IDs. I don't know why this seems like if you push it on the event bus that might count as publishing, but maybe these are somehow different. Okay, so that's polls. I assume that this syntax, this authorized syntax, is standard Ruby. I don't know if the actor stuff is standard Ruby on Rails, or if that's specific to this app. Actor Rails provides Rails support to the actor service objects. We have this Sunny thing. Let's go back to the gem file. We have factory bot. Wait, what? The bottom of my screen was blocked in front of me, so I didn't see what the error was. Okay, so that's not there. Let's see if we can find out some stuff about actors. Like, where do they come from? They are in the database. They have an actor ID. And they just might be like the same as users, except bots are also there. This is probably actors in the sense of like Patrick Swayze is an actor. Let's look up maybe in the repo, like discussions. Please support ActivityPub updates for threads. Issues with the number of voters in a poll. What if you look up Loomio actor? Maybe devise. Service actor. Doesn't seem like they're using the service actor gem. Allows you to move your application logic into small composable service objects. Yeah, I'm guessing that maybe actor is just what they're calling a user. But that does remind me, let's take a look at the database. And I think that'll maybe be the last thing. Overall, this app is really simple. I don't really know how they are yet recording things like polls. I don't know if they're if every user, I assume maybe every poll has like a corresponding database entry, like a poll ID, and when a user votes, perhaps it just records their vote in the table, and then as you're summarizing, you could pull all of that data, but I don't know. So here's the the database stuff. I don't know what seeds is. And we've got some migrations. Schema.rb. Active record. Schema. Define version. Blah, 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 blah. Enabling some extensions. CI text, HStore, PG stat statements. So I guess they're probably using Postgres. PG crypto. Create table. Active admin comments. Active admin comments. So I guess comments for admin that are active, maybe that haven't been responded to, active storage attachments. Blob ID. I don't know what the kind of storage attachments they mean. Active storage blobs. Storage variant records, attachments. File names, comment IDs, created at, file size, etc. Blazor audits. I don't know what Blazor is. Business intelligence made simple. Explore your data with SQL. Easily create charts and dashboards and share them with your team. Okay. So you can create dashboards. I don't know what an audit is. A Blazor audit. Blazor.audit returns the value of an attribute audit. Okay. But what is an attribute audit? Could not translate hostname DB to address. Name does not resolve. All right. Well, somehow there are things called audits, and they have something to do with this Blaze library. Has many audits. Add query to audits. Create audits. All queries are tracked. Okay, so maybe it's just tracking queries for in case you get audited. And they also are checking queries, I guess. And there's some Blazor dashboards. Blazor queries, blocked domains, some chatbots, and chatbots have a server, a channel, access token, author ID, group ID. So it's part of some group. I guess probably the authors who wrote the chatbot, whether it's notification only. A webhook kind. I don't know what server is used for. I don't know. I guess I don't really see where the URL for a webhook would go. I don't know if the chatbot is calling a webhook or if the chatbot provides a webhook for Loomio to call. But something about webhooks. We have some cohorts, which have start and end dates. And I don't know what they're up to. And then a comment must be a pretty common record type. A comment always has a discussion ID, a body, a user ID, a parent ID. This is presumably the comment they're responding to. When it was created and updated. Comment votes count. We're just keeping track of the number of votes, I guess, for the comment, and attachments count. When it was edited at. How many versions there are. Although we're keeping track of the body. And we're keeping track of how many versions there are, but I don't know if we can go to the previous versions. We have a body format, which is maybe just some like CSS or something. Some attachments, which is a JSON-B. The JSON, it might be just a JSON document listing the attachments as opposed to the attachments themselves. When the comment was discarded at, if it was discarded, I guess, the content locale. Link previews. The parent type. A list of discussion IDs. I don't know how that's different from the single discussion ID and a list of parent types. It's something about indexes. And we also have default group covers, like cover photos, etc. Some demos. Presumably a table just for demos. Discussion, templates, etc. So with an app like this, all of the, in an important sense, all the logic is in the database, which is kind of why we're looking at it. Discussions have a group ID and author ID. Why a single author? I guess maybe the creator of the discussion. A title. When the last comment was, a description, I guess, of the discussion, and so on. When the last activity was, the number of people that have seen it. Maybe do we also have like who saw it? I don't know. Maybe there's some list of author IDs. Perhaps it's all of the people who have commented on the discussion or something. We have a table of documents, which have like a web URL, a thumb URL, maybe thumbnail, and so on, and events. Let's look at for polls. So group survey, I guess that's a kind of poll. A group survey has a group ID, a category, localization, declaration, purpose, usage, referrer, role, website, miss, created at, etc. And then a bunch of group IDs. I assume is what this syntax means. I don't really know the schema of that RB syntax. But this is just regular Ruby, I think, right? So this must be a list. It has index group surveys on ID, on group ID. So it's something about creating an index, I assume. And then groups. So do we have poll? Poll. Survey. Let's grab this. It's just DB schema. Well, here's discussion. Let's go to the whoa. Okay, so here are all the tables. Discussion, demos, memberships, polls. I thought I looked for polls, but maybe I just did it wrong. Okay, so polls have an author ID, a title, details, closing at, like I said, when the poll is going to shut down. You have to vote by then, presumably. Closed at, I'm going to guess for if it's already closed. Created at, updated at, key. What is a key? I don't know. Maybe a unique ID. Although, I'm not sure. The poll type, stance data. Voters count, multiple choice. Custom fields. Stance counts. So I'm guessing stance is like a vote. Matrix counts. I don't know what a matrix is. Undecided voters count. Anonymous versions count. Details. Attachments. Link previews, etc. So let's look up stance. What? Nothing matches stance. Minimum stance choices. Stance data. This is the JSON B thing. Stance reason required, stance choices. So what is stance choices? It's a table that has a stance ID, a poll option ID, a score when it was created. So each stance choice has its own ID and a score. I don't know how broad they're intending that to be. What about stances? Stances has a poll ID, the participant ID, the reason, which is a string, when it was created, attachments, cast at, token, which is a string. I don't know what the token is for. Inviter ID, volume, accepted at. Link previews, revoker ID. So I think this is maybe the table. Stances, I think, is maybe the table where they record all of the raw votes. So you have the voter. No. Wait, what? So you have the poll that you voted in. You have the reason. And the participant ID. I don't know if that's different from the... I guess before we've called things author, but this is not you don't author a stance. I guess you participate. So I think this is just a user ID of the person voting. I don't really know what an attachment is. Maybe you can like defend your stance in some way. And I don't know what the token is for. This is something about tokens. Object token, add token to group requests. I doubt it's an authentication token. There are login tokens, but I doubt you would record that as part of your vote. Sign in tokens. Has tokens. Add token to stance. This is what I'm looking for. What? Unable to connect token, closing a thread, updates its activity. How can I just go to the regular interface here for issues, not the search interface? I don't know. I'm not really seeing anything. That seems like it's going to explain why there are tokens in the poll. So the activation tokens. In the meeting this morning, Viv mentioned some users are receiving the invitation link in their email, successfully setting up an account, and then later on returning to that link, expecting it to sign them in and bring them to their group. I'm not sure this blah blah blah. Let's try one more thing. Let's try Loomio documentation. And let's look for token here. Chatbots, token matrix settings. Loomio can send notifications to your matrix channels when new discussions, proposals, comments, votes, and outcomes occur. It's a little bit different than our other chat integrations. It does not use a webhook. We've built a custom bot client for this one. Okay. And this has some access token. Here's the access token itself. I don't know. Maybe stance, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the stances are not the votes. Maybe the stances are like the vote options. And maybe they have tokens so that you can uniquely identify them somehow. Let's look up stance. Terms of service. This is more matrix integration. How do I go back to the root? How do I go back to the root of the documentation? Maybe just help.lumio.com. Let's just ask the AIs. In Loomio, what is a stance? A stance is the position or opinion that a user takes on a particular proposal. This seems like, is that the same as the vote the user makes? Stance is essentially the same as a vote. Okay, so why does the database table for stances have a token column? The token column in a database table for stances likely serves as a unique identifier or reference point for each stance. Unique identification, cross-referencing, version control. Access control. The token can be used to implement access control mechanisms, such as restricting who can view or modify a particular stance. Yeah, maybe. Authentication. It might be used to verify the authenticity of a stance. Okay. Let's go back to the code and see if we can find some of what they're doing with stances. Maybe stance controller. Maybe a model. Oh, first of all, not that. So we do have initialize with tokens. So what is has tokens? Module has tokens. Send column generate unique secure token. Yeah, okay, so a unique secure token. I'm guessing that these are maybe these are kind of like UIDs, UUIDs. They do seem to know about UUIDs, and maybe it's the same thing as tokens. Let's see. We have access token is a secure random UUID, etc. Yeah, so I'm going to guess that the tokens are essentially UUIDs. I don't know why they're called tokens as opposed to something else, but I guess it's like a unique identifier for the stance, maybe for something like auditing or something like that. But I guess that's about it. So that's Loomio. It's a little bit hard for me to read because of Ruby, but it's clear where everything is going. We have the AGPL license, which is nice to see. Ultimately, like all of the data is stored in the database, as I said, and then there's kind of Ruby being used as like a scripting glue code to patch in stuff from the database into the HTML files, which are HAML files, and to display information to the user. And things like charts seem to be created using some libraries such as ImageMagick from the data. And that's, I think, about really all we could hope to see. So it's an interesting project. I've never used it. If you've used it, let me know. And thanks for watching.